How's it going?
Yeah, hello.
Hello. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Still early morning there, right?
Yeah, it's morning. It's very early morning. It's 8:30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
you
can we
don't
start the
think?
debate?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I think if I'm not wrong, I guess you are from America, right?
That's correct. Yes, I'm from America.
Yeah.
Those are my
So
unkept appearance and big body.
okay. Actually, the Constitution of America probably may not match with that of India, but as both the countries are democratic, I feel that few of the rules and regulations and few of the laws probably may be equivalent and equal. You know what? In India, when I talk about the laws, when I talk about the constitution, each and every one of the world will comment that India is a country that has got the largest democracy. India is a country that has got the largest democracy and it has got the longest constitution. So people comment that there arises no question of people not getting justice. But I myself being an Indian, I will say it's totally a wrong conception of people. In India, you will find many cases which has got till date. There has been no solution. Till date, there has been no judgment. The reason is that we Indians, the Indian Constitution always depends upon evidences. And when the country depends upon evidences, there always exists an opportunity for the other people, for the criminals to destroy evidences. To destroy evidences. The criminals on destroying evidences, there lives nothing. So when the judge asks that is there any witness, is there any evidence, when a lawyer could not present them, then the criminal, you know, he is not put behind a bush, he is set free. So, can you term that this is a law? We people say that law is blind. Law never discriminates between the rich. The law never discriminates between the rich and the poor living standard. But if law is blind, how can it provide judgment? If law doesn't try to understand the feelings of the people, if law doesn't try to understand the emotion of the people, then how can law provide justice to the people? That is my question. With people saying the law is blind, law only depends upon evidences. If we have to depend upon the evidences, if we have to depend upon the witness, then I feel there is no importance. There exists no role of the lawyers to go and perform his work in the courts. Why there is a lawyer? Because the lawyer is there, yes, to provide evidences, to present the witness before the judge. But apart from that, lawyer is a human being who tries to understand the emotions of his clients, who tries to understand the emotions of the people, of the victim. And it is his opportunity, it is his necessity, it is his duty to present before the judge. But if the judge do not try to understand the emotions, if the judge do not try to understand what the people want to say, and only based on evidences, then this law can never ever provide justice. India, there are a lot of corruption. There are a lot of people who has been doing corruption since ages and ages, but still there is no solution. Why? Because people think and people they ask us, where is the proof? This proof is a bullshit. We don't require proofs. We daily human beings, when we look at them, we can notify. We can see what they're doing, but we are unable to present a proof. And that's the reason those corrupted officers are now set free. So is this what we talk about law?
Now you make some interesting points and you make some good points here, but you have to understand that what you have is a knife that's double edged, and so the law is blind because, as you said, it doesn't distinguish between um, it doesn't distinguish between race, between wealth, between caste, between anything. It's blind. And you said in India, we can focus on that. You said that their law requires evidences more than it requires arguments. For now, you can say that in cases where the evidence is destroyed, that benefits the criminal, but in cases where false accusations are made, in cases where individuals who are not guilty are being charged crimes, uh, then the law then, if it went to take into account emotions or arguments specifically like that, then the law would be able to. be forced to condemn those innocent people if the people charging them would be convincing, or if they would be emotional, or if they believed a crime was committed against them when one really wasn't. So by demanding evidences, yes, in certain cases where evidence can't exist, or in certain cases where the criminals have destroyed the evidences, yes, maybe those criminals will get off when they should be punished. But in cases where people are falsely charged, or where emotions cause somebody to think a law has been committed, or the crime has been committed against them, then when one hasn't been, those people are going to be protected. So I can understand where you say that corruption can save criminals that should be punished. That's true, but the same laws that save those criminals protect the innocent. So in the way that evidence is required there, I see that as a shield for the innocent, even though it may be used inappropriately to protect the criminals at times. Still there?
Are you back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Okay, yeah, you disappeared for a while.
Okay.
So, did you get all that? Did you get what I was saying?
Yeah. Okay. I got what you meant to say. Yeah, that's true. That's that's true that the arguments are more important. That sometimes when the lawyer presents false arguments, then people are in a chaos and confusion, and probably at that time, innocent people may get into wrong judgment. That's fine. But you know what? I think whenever we talk about arguments, whenever we talk about anything, still, when we present the argument in the court, when we still present the argument in the court requires proofs, court requires witnesses. Simply presenting an argument is not sufficient to attain justice. Simply presenting an argument is not sufficient to attain justice. So only by presenting an argument, I really don't think that a person who is innocent can get into false trap. I don't think that. Because with the arguments, we obviously require witness. And if there exists no witness, there exists no evidences, then obviously the people will not be for the wrong judgment. Again, if you say that with a false argument, when there is a false evidence, then I would say, see, when there is a false argument, when there is a false evidence, the judge focuses on the evidences. The judge focuses on the evidences. So indirectly, directly from all the points of view, the judge is trying to focus not on the argument point, but on evidences. So that is the main point. That is the thing which is hampering us a lot. Because every time, whether the agreement is right, whether the agreement is wrong, the evidences are provided, and the judge never tries to listen what the victim, what the victim, or or the person who is standing in the witness box, or the person who is standing in the victim box, whatever he says, no one tries to listen to him. Even though he speaks the truth, if he has no proof, then he is considered as a criminal. So this is what is happening in our today's world, and it's very surprising to know that still till date, I'm not talking about United States, but still India, which has got the largest constitution, has got the largest democracy, yet thousands and crores of cases are still left behind. And you'll be shocked to know one thing, that a case which started 20 years ago, after 20 years, the judgment has been made. So do you think, is this the law? Do you think, is this the judicial system? Do you think such a country which is a democracy should have this judicial system? Do you think that?
Well, it seems to me that you don't have a problem specifically with law, or with the application, or with the law itself, but just with the application of the law. I don't think you would argue that having evidence is not important. That all trials should be done without evidence. I mean, of course, evidence is going to be important for proof of innocence or proof of guilt. Now, your argument seems to stem from the fact that evidences are given so much weight, even when other arguments exist. Now, that may be a problem with the application of the law, but I wonder, would you have it a different way? Would you have it where evidence says one thing, but the arguments being eloquent can change a judge's opinion in spite of the evidence? It would seem to me that hard evidence is what you want to have on your side, or if you're trying to make your case, and you would want that taken into account more so than what anybody else is saying. If someone can make a good argument that says something different than what your evidence shows, if your evidence is not subjective, your evidence is simply true. This videotape shows this event happening. If someone can see that videotape and take an argument that says X happened, well, you can show the videotape and said, no, this is what actually happened. If that person who makes the convincing argument can cause the judge to look against that videotape or to change his view on that videotape, well, that's not going to be what you want, right? You want the evidence that can be which is true, because we can assume that the evidence tells exactly what happened. You want that to have the most weight. So it would seem in cut and dried cases, the evidence would speak for itself above all arguments. So it would come to now. If you're telling me are these cases where the evidence maybe leans both ways? The evidence says X happened, but what could be X if it's told by one point of view is one way and told by the other, and the judge has to decide, and they can't decide, and so the cases go on and on for a long time. And that's where the corruption comes in, or is it something different? Am I missing your point? Your point here.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Whatever you say, okay, that's fine. But you know what? Evidence ought to be given importance. I do agree with that, because every time arguments are not the only thing. But sometimes, I want to just give a very simple example. It may not. It is what happening in our country. Sometimes a very honest police officer, whenever he tries to go and arrest a person who is involved in taking bribes, who is involved in doing malfunction, who is involved in doing corruption, and when he gets arrested, when a political person gets arrested and is brought to the court, and when the judge, the police officer, present your evidences, present your witnesses, present the proofs that you have, claim that the person standing over there is a corrupted one, at the time he finds all his evidences are destroyed. The witnesses who stood with the police officer are now standing.
Still there? Still there? Hello?
Okay, there was a connection error. I think you are back. Okay, so
all right, there you go.
So the witness who stood with a police officer was now standing with the political person. Why? Because the political person gave him a handsome of money, so to speak the lie, so to speak the false statement in front of a judge. And when the judge heard the wrong statement given by the witness, obviously the political person who was claimed to have got involved in corruption is now set free. So this is what is happening in our day-to-day world. So this is what I was talking about, the laws. And whenever we speak about the criminals, whenever we speak about leave the criminals. When I speak about the underworld dons, we know those persons are involved in such type of murders. Those persons involved in such type of illegal acts. Still, we can't arrest them. Still, the government cannot arrest them. Why? If I talk about the dons who are operating in India from Pakistan, we have got a lot of evidence, we've got a lot of proof but still the proofs, evidences are invalid in the code of Pakistan, and that's the reason the underworld persons who are operating in India from Pakistan are still set free. We're unable to catch them. We're unable to search, file FIRs against them. Why? Those persons, you know what? They have killed thousands of people in Mumbai. Still, they set free. A recent terrorist from Pakistan who was the head of, I forgot the terrorist group name. His name was Hafiz Syed. He is a terrorist. Still today, he is trying to play elections in Pakistan for a prime minister. Do you think this is something called law? He was the person who was involved in Mumbai attack in India, and today he is playing elections in Pakistan. This is what will as an Indian, will I call this a law? Is this a law? When you kill thousands of people, including 6 persons from United States, is that person to be set free? Can you just determine? Can you just think whether our law is really helpful for us?
Well, I mean, would you say that your law in this case, if it was actually followed as it should be, as it's written down, if the law was actually followed, would it have the same result, or is it the corruption or the people applying the law that is the problem? It seems to me that you're not describing the actual law, just how people apply the law. Is that true? If the laws were followed in your country as they're written, would these things still be happening, or is it the corruption that overwrites the law?
Sorry, I could not hear you. What do you say?
My question is, if the laws of your country were followed as they should be, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, okay.
Would this still be happening?
Yeah, it will still be happening. Yeah. Okay. I got your question.
So your laws allow it to happen, right? So they're written as to allow it to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our law is allowed to happen. I will just give a very simple, not example. I will just give a simple fact. Okay. When you see the symbol, or when you see the idol of mother law in our country, you can see a black type of cloth has been put in our eyes, which says that the law is blind and it will see on the evidences and it will not justify which one is right, which one is true on the basis of arguments, but on the basis of evidences. And there's a reason there is a black color cloth that has been tied in our eyes. That is the idol of our idol of mother law in India. So from that basically point of view, you can just determine what type of laws and regulations we are having in India. That's what. And still, if the laws are being followed, anyway, the laws are not followed by any of the persons in India, but still, if our laws are followed, then also these things will happen. The ultimate solution, which I feel can be done, to change each and every rules and regulations on new constitution, on new rules and regulations should be prepared, where more emphasis should be given on the people's arguments rather than on the basis of witness and evidence.
So let's talk about how the system that you think it should be, where more weight is given to the arguments as opposed to the evidence. So let's give an example here. Say the example of a crime is being done, and the evidence points one direction, but the strong arguments points the other. You would then suggest that the court or the laws comes down and decides on the arguments and not on the evidences. Is that what you're saying?
Can I get it once more?
Sure. I want to just talk about how you think it should be done, putting more weight with the arguments. Okay. So
okay.
if you have some sort of case come up and the evidence says it went one way, but the argument is being made that it's gone the other way, and the argument is strong, how you would say that the judge then should give more weight to the argument, even though the evidence clearly says that X happened or that this thing happened. If the argument says something else happened, what justification would the judge then have to go in with the argument against the evidence?
Fine. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Okay, in this case, we can't say whether the statements or whether the not sorry, not the statements, whether the witnesses or whether the proofs provided or the evidence provided by the lawyer, whether they're really true or fake, we can't judge. Witness can be created anytime, anywhere. But when an argument has been presented, even though the argument is pre-planned, still we can find out whether argument is valid or invalid. Because at a time, not only one person, many other persons related to the case would be there. And still a judge, obviously he will be a professional in law, obviously he will be an experienced person. So he can ultimately understand whether argument present is wrong, true and false. And the arguments require the support of evidences. So that is what. So even the evidences say one thing and our arguments say one thing, I'll say that at least we must try to put a clear and near vision to the arguments rather than always concentrating and being conservative on evidences. Because evidences can be created, it can be destroyed, it can be again newly created. So if evidences are nothing at all, I still here also we can give evidences. I'll give an example. Recently, you may have heard about our Asifa case in Jammu Kashmir. A 8-year-old girl was got raped. Imagine, a 8-year-old girl was got raped, and the police officers was given a amount of 1.5 lakh of rupees to destroy evidences. And one police officer, including a constable, destroyed evidences. So that is what they can destroy evidences, even they can create own evidences. But the arguments made or the statements that are presented, when we emphasize it, when we analyze it, we can find out whether that is really true or whether it's really false. That's what.
Would you accept a system of laws then where any court case is done without any evidence at all and strictly on the arguments made by the lawyers or the people involved? Would you be okay with a situation like that where evidence is ignored completely?
No, I don't. I don't say that we must not provide evidences or we must not ignore. We must ignore evidences. I'm not saying that. But the thing is that
Right.
when we try to provide more concentration, more importance on evidences, probably there arise a situation when we try to skip all of the arguments. Thing is that. So my point should is very clear. That okay, fine, try to provide concentration evidences, but as well as try to analyze the statements provided by the lawyers. Why don't we try to provide that particular thing? Whatever you said, I am whatever you said. I understood the question. It's not that I'm saying that we should not try to provide more importance on evidences. No, we should try. The judge must try that he analyze both the things. On one side, take the arguments. On one side, take the evidences, and see, find out. And there must be system to find out whether evidences really holds good or not, because evidences can be created, as I said. So the judge, what he does, he doesn't try to clarify, he doesn't try to justify whether evidences are really true or fake. The problem is that is the problem. What is happening?
I think that both of us can agree that if the evidence is not being tampered with, is not being created, if it's the true evidence, then that evidence is should be of the supreme importance. But given the situation that you're describing in your town or in India in general, where evidence is often tampered with, evidence is created when needed, it seems to me that what you're talking about, that there should be more emphasis on the arguments because you can't trust the evidence. Would you agree with that? All right, you're back. Did you hear what I said on that? So I think we can both agree that if the evidence is not being tampered with, if it's not false, if it's true evidence, then it should be
Yeah,
given a greater weight.
yeah,
But given the situation that you're describing, where no matter what evidence is presented, you can't be certain that it's true, that it could be created or it could be false evidence, or that evidence could exist that was destroyed. Given that situation being true, which we'll agree that it's true in India, then I think most certainly you're right that evidence should argument should be given greater weight because you can't trust the evidence. So in situations where you can trust the evidence should be supreme. But in most situations, it seems like you're arguing that you can't trust the evidence. So in that case, that evidence that you can't trust, and which maybe not trusting the evidence, should be the de facto position, where judges should say, well, this evidence exists, but it may or may not be true. So I'm going to give greater weight to the arguments. And if they can make the arguments that uses the evidence and supports them, that makes that argument even stronger. So if that's the situation that is, as you're describing, is true, then I think you're right. I would think ideally evidence should be the most supreme and should be what the decision is made on. But if you can't trust the evidence, the next best thing is going to be the argument. Would you agree with that so far?
Yeah, I do agree that if the evidences are not tampered, if the evidences are not fake, if the evidences really holds good, then obviously we must provide a concentration, or we must provide importance to the evidence. But along with the evidences, there must be an opportunity for the victim who stands in the witness box, or for the person who is tried to be who is tried to prove, or who is tried to be treated as a criminal. We must try that we listen to what he speaks. We must try to understand his emotions. We must try to understand what he tries to present out. Because until and unless, we try to understand what are the points, what are the emotions, what are the feelings under which a criminal has performed a crime, under which he has done things, until and unless we don't really justify it, probably the judgment that has been made will not be true. So I do agree that evidences are to be given as superior one. They are to be treated as supreme. But along with that, there must not we must not consider the arguments as inferior ones, but it must be parallel. There must be an equivalent. Both the things should be equivalent to one another. The judgment as well as the arguments must be parallel and must equivalent to one another. That's what I think.
Okay. Okay. Now, what criteria would you use to ensure that the arguments are genuine? I'm interested. I know a skilled judge should be able to tell, but in your own opinion, um, I know just from experience that given the right preparation, a skilled argumentator, as a lawyer would be, can argue any position as if it's the truth, whether or not it is. So, what criteria would you use to be able to distinguish
Fine.
a
Okay,
skilled argument?
I just want to say one thing. What if I question? You said lawyer can argue on any particular topic. Very fine. But the judge who is being seated in a court and whom we term as honor, whom we give him the dignity, who is termed as the judge of the court, we must know that he has got the particular position after overcoming years and years of lawyers, after overcoming years and years of performing law in the courts. So he's a very skilled person. He's a very experienced person. So if a lawyer tries to provide a wrong, judge can ultimately point it out. The judge can ultimately catch it out. And if the judge cannot perform that work, then I will say one thing: that particular judge is not capable of holding the particular position. He must be terminated at that moment, at the particular incident. So I think there exists no criteria. There exists no criteria for me, or I think we must not prepare any criteria, because it totally depends upon the judge. The judge is always superior. He has got a lot of experiences. So when he is an experienced person, even the lawyers who tries to present arguments, when you go to speak in front of the judge, obviously sometimes they used to mishandle and they used to mingle with all this arguments and all this to create chaos and confusion. So still, the judge must be capable. The judge must be capable because he has got a lot of experiences. He must be capable to find out which one is truth and which one is fake. And I think if he's not able to do that, he is not suitable to be a judge.
Okay. Now, would you agree that most judges in your area or in India in general are immune to the same bribes and the same corruption that, say, the police force or
Yeah.
the
Okay. Okay. I will just say one thing. When I was in class, probably eight, there was a statement written in a book that the judges of the courts get a very high salary. Often
okay.
the question was raised, why they get a very high salary? And the answer to the question was so that they don't get involved in taking bribes, they don't get involved in corruption. That was the answer written in a book. Very true. But at present, if I say I should not speak bad about our country, but it really hurts me, when I say the Supreme Court judge at present, the Supreme Court judge at present, he is accused, he is claimed of doing something wrong, he is claimed to do something against the Constitution. It's really very shameful for me that I, being an Indian, I'm saying that at present you can't imagine the situation at the high level. The Supreme Court judge, along with the other judges, they are in a cats and dog fight. It's really shameful and it really hurt me when I speak the statement. And I do agree that yes, still there are judges in our area, in my country, who takes bribe and take the decision only for the money. I really agree with that.
But would you say, we'll just say this, would you say that most judges do not do that? That most judges do not take bribes, and most judges can be counted upon to do a fair trial? Would you say that in most cases that's the case?
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of judges who take bribes, but yes, yes, there is a section of the judges, there is a section of in each and every department. If you try to find, there is a section of those officials who do not get involved with those crimes. They're very honest
Okay.
and they try to perform the work.
Okay. Now, do you think there'd be a way to word or change your constitution or your law in such a way
Yes,
to
there.
increase the power of those that are honest and decrease the power of those that are blind? Or no, I
Yes,
mean, sorry, those that
there.
taste lies.
Yeah, there is a there can be a criteria. You see, I don't know about the Constitution of United States very much, but in our India, the Constitution is very rigid. We cannot change it, but we can make various amendments. And
Okay.
as we know, the president is the head of the three armies. So if the president tries to enforce a special power on a particular officer, he can do that. Even the chief minister, even the government, even the governor of a state, if he wants, he can duly present special powers to a particular honest officer. And at times, he can withdraw many powers from a very high official. So that can be done. But to perform that, we require again evidences. We require again witnesses to prove that the person is honest. So we always get strike on that particular point. Evidence, evidence, evidence. So that's good.
Okay. So I can see in the way that you're set up that evidence are very important, and I can see how if you can't trust whether or not your evidence are true, then you can come to the position that relying solely on evidence is doesn't get you to the truth most of the time, right? So
Yeah.
that's a difficult position. That's a difficult position to be in, and I agree that arguments should have a greater weight. I wish I had a solution to tell you to how to ensure that your evidences were true, but I mean, I'm not sure how to go about doing that besides just making everybody honest. But I'm not sure that it's the laws. I guess my only point is, against, to bring it back to the debate. My only point is it doesn't seem that it's the law that's the problem. It seems that it's the people that are carrying out the law, that the law itself
Yeah.
seems to be set up correctly, being blind. So the idea is that the law, if it were carried out correctly, it would be the best solution for the people, but it's carried out
Yes.
incorrectly. And since it's carried out incorrectly, then the law is not working, and probably a better law that can't be abused so much would be better. And I mean, I don't disagree with you. I mean, if that's the conclusion that you're coming to, I mean, I think you're right. You're right about that. That given the situation as it is, then evidence just should be given less value in most cases if you can't count them to be true.
Yeah.
Now
That's what
you go ahead.
you go on. Go on.
Now you said you brought up some specific cases in your area, like the young girl that you were talking about. Now, in those cases, were the arguments like in those cases, were the arguments given enough weight that they should have been, that the correct resolution came about, or was the girl that was raped, did that not go the right way because the evidence was gone? So
No,
my
Okay, no,
Go
no, no.
ahead.
Actually, the rape case. Okay, in Jammu Kashmir, the what I was talking about rape cases. Now, I was talking about police officer destroyed evidences, but it was very luckily, the criminals are now put in trial, and still the case is going on. Still, the case is going on. But I just want to mention here, though it is not a part of the debate, but I just want that the whole world should know about this, that is very surprising to say a police officer himself was involved in performing the rape case, which is really shameful. So that's what is happening. So
That's a tough. Okay, so would you say that it normally happens that when the evidence is destroyed, you made the point earlier that if the evidence is destroyed, like in this case, that usually then the trial cannot come to a resolution because the evidence doesn't exist anymore. In this case, the trial is maybe going to be able to be resolved because it's the type of case. But in a normal case where evidence is destroyed, the trial just keeps going on without a resolution, even if there are arguments being made. Would you say that that's true?
no, actually, over there in the case, though they try to destroy evidences, but still some of the evidences still exist. Still some of the evidences still exist, and with the help of those evidences, and with the help of eyewitness, actually,
Okay.
the criminals are not put into trial. That's what was the actual fact.
Okay, well that's good. But in general, would you say that when evidence is tampered with, or evidence is created, or the evidence can't be trustworthy, in general, you're saying that if the evidence can't be trusted, then the judge doesn't rule at all, and it doesn't come to a miss. Like in the United States, we have if there's a court case and there can't come a resolution, then the case is dismissed and it goes away, or it's no longer. But you're saying that then the cases are just pending for years and years and years without a resolution. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't have the approximate number over there, how many cases are pending. But if I will check
Right.
the net, you'll find thousands of crores of cases are still pending in India. And I just want to say one thing over here, that which I said, now a case which has got occurred 20 years ago, for a murder case, after 20 years back, the resolution, the judgment has been made. Why? It was a very long procedure. Evidences are put on. Again, evidences were not accepted. Again, one more witness was created. Again, one more evidence was created. So this is what is happening. This is all that is going on from ages.
So, and you're saying that that is allowed by the law, and that maybe that taking away that process, taking that out of what's being allowed, would maybe make the cases more likely to be fair. Do you think? Because the law provides for those long cases that last 20 years, right? So if you
Yeah.
change the law, if you
Yes.
change the
Yes.
law
That's
so
what.
that
Yeah. If we change that up, probably if actually we have over in India we have what we call as fast track courts. So where the cases are to be completed within a specific time. But if I think, but I think for a common people, if we change the law, that's what our law is at now is just completely blind. But from that blind law, if we try to rectify it, if we try to modify it, I think obviously, every people, every section of people will attain justice. I think that.
okay. I just think that if you modify the law so that it's not blind, and you take in, you take in more of the emotional accounts, the more of the if you make it more open to different type of arguments aside from the evidence that it's focused on now, that I just think you're opening up a chance for those for abuses to come in, where if you don't necessarily have to have evidence, but you can still make claims of crimes, then if your argument is strong enough, then you're definitely opening up the possibility that that system can be abused. Now, you would have to, it's not impossible to do it like that, but it seems like you would have to put in very strong checks to say, okay, there's not a lot of evidence in this case, or we can't trust the evidence, so let's go on the arguments. And if you have two people that are very passionate about an event, and that may or may not have been a crime, it would be difficult, I think, even for a judge to tell. And you would hate for that to be decided solely on the strength of the argument. Say one lawyer is just not as good as arguing as the other one, and that's what decides the case when there's no evidence.
No, no.
What do
If
you?
whatever is okay, if a lawyer is not good at providing argument, then the other lawyer at that particular point of time, evidences must be given importance. I do agree with that. No, I'm not saying that we must not rely on evidences, but I am saying that we must rely parallelly on both evidences as well as arguments. But we must we must like in case, okay, fine, that was what I liked it. In case there exists no evidences in the case, but
Right.
if there exists arguments, in that case, we must analyze whether the arguments presented by one lawyer as well as the other, whether both the arguments can are strong enough to defend each or not. At the point of time, the people sitting over there should try to understand the gravity of each and every argument and should try to present it out. And the argument that gets the most that has the most strength, that has got the more weight, I think that particular argument must be accepted. And even if the lawyer is not good at providing statement, still, still, if the lawyer presents an argument which is more weight, which has got more weight than the other one, I think that particular argument must be given equal acceptance. And I think, okay, I think that actually each and every lawyer, after overcoming the years of LLB, obviously they will have a good career. Obviously, they will have a good fluency to speak out, and they will obviously can present out good statements and good arguments. So I think arises no question of a lawyer being able to not present a good argument. I think that.
Okay. Now, the only problem I think that you would run into, okay, is if you have an evidence without, if you have a case that there's no evidence, not that they're just unavailable, and you have two people that are arguing, then you would have to agree that there's an opportunity here for the judge to say, okay, these arguments are equal, so I can't come to a decision. Now, not coming to a decision, however, is going to still be the same as coming to a decision in favor of one individual. So if someone is accusing someone of a crime and there's no evidence and they're making the arguments and the arguments are equal, if the judge can't come to a decision, then by default they're going to be siding with the person. Even if the person committed the crime, they're going to be siding with the person, the criminal, because they can't, if the arguments are equal. So I don't know. That's the same as it is now. So even if the arguments are taking the case, even if the arguments are taking more weight, if the arguments are equal, it's still going to be in favor of the criminal. So I don't think that system is not going to be necessarily inherently better than the current system that you have.
Yeah, that's true. That in that case, probably the criminal may not get that particular punishment he deserves. So actually, it's all obviously time, but I just want to conclude by saying that whatever we talk about laws, whatever we talk about everything this and that about a judicial system, I just want that. I think okay, from personally, I think uh, evidences and arguments. Apart from that, what you require is the honesty. The judge must be honest. The lawyers must be honest. He must not take up the cases of the criminals. He should always try to support the truth. And obviously, if everyone in the court are honest, if everyone tries to do the good thing, if everyone is on the path of virtue, then obviously the ones who are criminals will get the punishment, and the one who is innocent will set free. So apart from all these things, I just want to conclude by saying that the important thing that we require is honesty. Back to you.
I agree with you. And if there was just a little bit more honesty and everybody involved was honest, we wouldn't have needs for laws or courts or judges or lawyers anyway, right? So if we could just
Yeah.
spread out a little more honesty, then I think we'd be better off. But definitely in positions of power, like in the judge and the police officers, if a little more honesty. Now, if only we could find a way to ensure that that happened, then we would
Mm.
be able to solve all the problems in the world, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
so
true.
much for the debate. I appreciate you
Thank
getting
you
up
very much.
early to have it. So,
Okay.
what time did you say it was there?
It's about 9:32 a.m.
9:32 a.m.
9.
Wow, it's 11 o'clock here. So,
Okay.
uh,
Okay, good
yeah.
night.
So, yeah.
Good
But
night.
if you got something else you want to talk about, I enjoyed debating with you. this is a
Yeah.
good time for me. If it's a good time for you, so we can do it again.
Okay.
All right.
Then
Thank you.
let us start a live discussion then. Okay.
Okay. All right. See
Okay.
you.
Bye. Okay. Bye.